Hey everyone, welcome back to Native English Podcast.
Today, we're exposing some bad habits that might be slowing down your English progress.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about what you're not doing, it's about what you're already doing that's holding you back.
So, we're breaking down 9 common habits that make learning English harder. Be honest. How many of these are you guilty of?
I know I've definitely done some of these when learning a new language.
But don't worry. We'll also share how to fix them. All right, let's start with the first habit. Overusing translation apps.
Yeah, this is a big one.
When you see a new word, do you immediately grab your phone and translate it into your native language?
If you do, you're not alone. Translation apps can be helpful, but relying on them too much is a problem.
Right. It slows you down because you're always switching between languages instead of thinking in English.
And let's be real, translations aren't always accurate. Some words don't have a perfect match in other languages.
Plus, if you're always translating, you're stuck in your native language's structure, making it harder to form natural English sentences.
So, how do we fix this?
First, switch to an English dictionary like Merriam-Webster or Cambridge instead of a bilingual one.
And before checking a dictionary, try to guess the meaning from context. Your brain will get better at understanding English naturally.
Another great trick is explaining words in English instead of translating.
Like instead of translating amused, try explaining it.
Yeah. You could say something like, amused means feeling happy and entertained by something funny or interesting.
See? No translation needed. Try this method, and soon you'll start thinking in English more easily.
All right, let's move on to the second bad habit. This one might surprise you.
A lot of learners think using big fancy words will make them sound fluent.
Yeah, but here's the truth. Native speakers rarely use complicated words in daily conversations.
You don't need to sound like a dictionary to sound fluent.
If you memorize rare words without really knowing how to use them, your speech might sound unnatural or even confusing.
Like imagine saying, "Your perspicacity is impressive."
Most native speakers would just say, "You're really sharp."
Exactly. And the problem with memorizing difficult words is that they don't stick if you never use them. So, how do we fix this? First, focus on common, useful words that native speakers actually say.
And learn words in context. Don't just memorize word lists. See how words are used in real sentences.
A great trick is using one new word per day in a sentence.
Like instead of memorizing perspicacious, just use sharp or observant.
Yeah. Try saying, "She's really sharp. She notices everything."
That sounds way more natural.
So don't waste time on words you'll never use. Focus on the ones that actually help you communicate.
The third bad habit is to focus too much on grammar.
Now, don't get us wrong. Grammar is important.
Exactly. If you're always thinking, is this the right tense? Did I use the correct preposition? You might freeze up and stop yourself from speaking.
The thing is, native speakers don't think about grammar rules while talking.
They don't pause and analyze their sentence structure. They just speak.
So instead of memorizing grammar rules, focus on learning phrases and sentence patterns naturally.
When you hear the same structure again and again, your brain picks it up without needing to analyze every word. And by the way, in our ebook, we highlight real conversations to help you learn grammar in context.
Yeah. When you listen to real English, you'll start to notice grammar patterns without forcing yourself to memorize them. Let's look at an example. Instead of overthinking, should I use the present perfect or past simple in this sentence? Just say what sounds natural. Instead of stressing over, wait, do I say I have gone or I went? Just say, I've been to Paris before.
It's natural, it's correct, and you don't have to overanalyze it.
So don't let grammar rules slow you down. Focus on learning patterns from real conversations, and your grammar will improve.
All right, let's move on to the next bad habit. This one stops a lot of people from improving.
The fourth bad habit is relying only on passive learning.
Watching movies and listening to podcasts is great, but if you never actually use English, your speaking won't improve.
Right. You might understand English perfectly when you hear it, but when it's your turn to speak, your brain freezes.
That's because listening and speaking are two different skills. A lot of learners assume that just exposing themselves to English, watching TV shows, listening to podcasts, reading articles will magically make them fluent.
But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Imagine trying to learn how to swim just by watching videos.
If you never get in the water, you won't actually know how to swim.
So if you want to speak English fluently, you have to practice speaking. Let's talk about how to fix this issue. First, make speaking a daily habit.
Even if you don't have a conversation partner, just talk to yourself.
Right. Describe what you're doing, your thoughts, or even repeat what you hear from a podcast or video.
The fifth bad habit is memorizing vocabulary without context.
A lot of learners try to memorize long word lists, thinking it will help them speak better.
But the problem is, words don't exist alone. They exist in sentences, phrases, and real conversations.
If you just memorize words one by one, you won't know how to actually use them.
That's why so many learners struggle to form natural sentences. They know the words, but they don't know how they fit together.
Native speakers don't learn words in isolation. They pick up phrases naturally from conversations.
That's what makes their speech flow effortlessly.
And that's why learning vocabulary with context is so important.
Okay, so how to fix this? Instead of just memorizing run into, you should learn it as part of a sentence.
Like, I ran into my friend at the mall yesterday.
Now you actually understand that it means meet unexpectedly. Never learn words alone. Always learn them inside full sentences.
Second, notice how words are used in real conversations, whether it's in movies, podcasts, or books. And finally, for every new word you learn, find at least 3 example sentences. Now let's talk about the sixth bad habit, sticking to comfortable vocabulary.
It's really easy to rely on words you know. Well, like very good or bad, because they're simple and safe.
But using them too much limits your growth in English.
Those basic words might get the job done, but they don't help you sound more natural or precise.
Imagine if you always said very cold instead of finding a better word like freezing.
It's just not as impactful. The key is to challenge yourself to use more specific, natural words instead of relying on the same old ones.
You can start by replacing words like very with something more precise.
For example, instead of saying very cold, you could say freezing. It's not only more accurate, but also makes your English sound smoother and more confident.
Amazing. Just to remind you that you can grab a free PDF that we have put together for this episode. Link in the description. Now let's talk about the seventh bad habit. Not asking question when you don't understand.
It's so easy to just nod or say yeah or when you're lost in a conversation.
But that only leads to confusion and misunderstandings. Sometimes, learners feel embarrassed to ask for clarification, thinking it might make them look bad. But that's totally not the case. Native speakers won't judge you for asking questions.
The worst thing you can do is pretend to understand. It just keeps you stuck.
If you're confused, you need to ask. It's the only way to make sure you're on the same page.
Okay, so how to avoid making this mistake? First, instead of just nodding, try using simple phrases like, "Sorry, could you say that again? What does that word mean?"
These are polite and clear ways to ask for help.
Another great phrase is, "Can you give me an example?"
If you're still confused, don't hesitate to ask for further explanation.
It shows that you want to learn and improve. Something like, "So you're saying that?"
That's a good way to double-check.
Absolutely. It's a great way to ensure you got the message right.
Don't let the fear of asking hold you back. It's better to ask than to stay confused.
For example, instead of pretending you understood take it for granted, you could ask, "Sorry, what do you mean by take it for granted?"
That way you'll know exactly what's being said.
Asking questions is a powerful tool for learning. It opens up conversations and gives you the chance to practice more. Now let's talk about the eighth bad habit. Okay, this one is a little too common, to be honest. Believing that you're too old to learn. It's common for adults to think that only kids or young people can pick up languages easily.
But that mindset can really hold you back.
Absolutely. Some adults think that because they're older, they won't be able to learn as easily or quickly as younger learners.
But that's not true at all.
Right. In fact, adults often have an advantage when it comes to learning.
We have better life experience, more developed learning strategies, and a deeper understanding of grammar, logic, and patterns.
These things actually make it easier to learn languages.
Adults can make sense of grammar rules more efficiently than kids, and they can connect new information with things they already know.
So it's not about age, It's about leveraging what you already know.
That's a great point. Instead of focusing on how young people might seem to learn more easily, focus on your own strengths.
You have a lot of skills that make language learning more effective.
And it's also about setting realistic goals. If you compare yourself to kids, you'll only get discouraged.
But when you set smaller, achievable goals, you'll feel proud of the progress you're making.
Remember, thousands of adults learn English successfully every year. You're definitely not alone.
If they can do it, so can you.
So let go of that belief that you're too old. Embrace the learning process and celebrate the experience.
Because you're more capable than you think.
Okay. And finally, let's talk about the worst one, inconsistent practice.
It's easy to fall into the trap of studying intensively for a few days and then taking long breaks.
But this can actually slow down your progress.
That's right. The key to mastering English, or any language, is regular practice.
Studying for long hours once a week is nowhere near as effective as practicing every day for just 15 to 30 minutes.
When you take long breaks between study sessions, your brain forgets what you've learned.
But if you make English a daily habit, even for just 10 minutes a day, you'll see much better results.
And it's not just about memorizing vocabulary or grammar.
You need to use English in different ways. Listen, speak, write, and read.
The more you incorporate it into your daily life, the faster you'll improve.
That's all for today's episode.
Thanks for joining us. Remember, consistent fun practice is what will help you succeed.
Stay motivated and keep learning.